It's the greatest podcast in the history of the world.
It goes high up and under the full 40. Becky's taken a ripper!
He has a bounce, he crosses 50, he pins the ears back, and he drills the goal!
All the latest news and views from around the VAFA.
Here's the big man!
The big guy.
He's done it again! This bloke extracts some of the finest
From outside the arc. It's a long bomb from outside the arc.
This is for the love of the game.
You can tweet that and hashtag it bloody good.
Hello and welcome to For the Love of the Game. Jason Bennett alongside Matthew, Donald and Brayden May. Round 2 is in the books, gentlemen, and, well, some upsets up and down all the way through all the sections. We're going to start with Premier Men's, obviously, and both the teams from Premier B that were promoted last season had a win, and it's left us with just 2 undefeated teams and 2 winless teams after round 2 of the season. It's an incredible-looking ladder. One of those teams to have won in the second round that was promoted from Premier B last year, of course, is Old Trinity, who were absolutely outstanding against Zabs on the weekend at Toorak Park. And to talk us through that victory is their coach, Donald McDONALD. G'day, D-Mac.
G'day, Jason. How are you, mate?
I'm really well, mate. How are you after that performance? And what did you make of it?
Oh, well, it's, we'll put it this way. It was a big improvement on the previous week. So, and I think, like it's, what it's like at the start of seasons. It's more probably trying to work out, where you sit amongst things. And I thought that Uni Blues were really good against us in round 1. And, we made us have a really good look at the lineup, but more importantly, like just that big jump up in how the Premier A teams really adjust both ways, with and without the ball. And we were a little bit off the mark with it. So it was a good wake-up call for us. And, it was a really good response against Zabs on Anzac Day. So it was a fantastic result for us, and it just gives us a little bit of belief going forward.
We'll talk through the ins and outs of the game in just a moment. Just go back a step to what did you reinforce in the week between the Blues game and the Zabs game? What were the main talking points on the whiteboard?
Well, for starters, I thought Uni Blues were excellent with their on-field leadership. I just think their AFL players, O'Shea and Gleeson and bringing in Ebert was huge from behind the ball. Like they just seemed to be able to dictate terms to us, and their big keys were just a bit unstoppable. So I think the heat of the game was just at another level than what our guys were used to. So we just really focused at training on, just raising up our intensity a little bit. And I think everyone was a bit on notice come Saturday against Zabs, because we just felt that, Zabs are obviously have been a very successful A-grade team over the past few years, with especially last year, just missing out in that prelim to Old Scotch, and they had a great record at home. So we just felt we're going to have to really be on our toes early. And to the boys' credit, they were fantastic. It was super sharp inside, and everybody played their roles, and it was good. I mean, we didn't, in terms of how we want to play, we didn't change too much from last year to this year, because really, let's face it, I mean, like in the VAFA, you get the boys for 2 nights a week, and a lot of times, you don't get them depending on work. So we try to simplify things and but just really focus on just being a bit more sharp and a bit more alert.
Charlie Mackayser kicked the first goal of the game for Zabs, and then you guys responded to kick 5 goals in 12 minutes. It was a blistering first quarter of football. It was as good an A-grade football as you'll see anywhere, D-Mac. When you were standing there on the boundary line watching it, and you could see the belief in your players just suddenly start to grow, and that was obvious to everyone who was watching this game. Suddenly you guys realised, hey, we do belong here. We can serve it up to these guys. What was going through your head? Because it was just phenomenal football.
Well, what's funny as a coach, you kind of like, you don't get too caught up with the scoreboard, because, there's always momentum shifts, and, you could come out and have a great first quarter, and then all of a sudden, the rest of the game, the other mob turns it on and you're on the back foot, and then blokes start retreating and the whole psyche of your team changes. So obviously I was really pleased with the way we were playing, but you just got to kind of like just keep your concentration levels up as a coach. And being an old fella like me, mate, sometimes it's difficult to do. So it was just, look, it was just full credit to the players. They just, they're a pretty proud group, and I just think, they just wanted to maintain that sort of level of intensity, which you have to do against a side like Zavs. So they're always gonna come back, and it was just a really good opportunity for our boys to just, like I said, just to get some belief, and you could just see the look on their faces when they came in at quarter time that they were really, they were really up and about, but it was only one quarter, so it was fantastic football, but the challenge is to be able to hang in there for 4 quarters.
And they did, Matty. The thing that was most impressive, every time Zavs started to get a bit of a rally on, and you were sort of expecting, watching the game, it's only a matter of time before Zavs sort of get back into this. But every time they did, Old Trinity had the answers, and that was so impressive. It wasn't just that they won, it was the way they won.
Yeah, you were thinking at some point throughout the course of the afternoon, the switch was going to be flipped, and suddenly Old Zavs were going to make a rush. But as you say, Jace, the T's just held them off at every opportunity. Don, congratulations on an outstanding win so early in the season for you guys. You've sort of mentioned the performance from last week to this. How do you feel that the players have adjusted so far from the rigours of Prem B to Prem A and the step up in division?
I think, I think you're going to wait, 5 or 6 weeks into the season just to see how you go, because Uni Blacks will obviously go to work on what we did on the weekend, and I think what you find in the coaching I found was really good in B grade last year. Obviously the work that's with Prem Data and the VAFA's coverage, I think coaches are really switched on with preparing for the next opposition, so they'll always work hard to take away your strengths. So we didn't actually do that against Zavs. We just probably focused on what we could do, and I think that it's going to just take us a little bit to see where we sit, because you only have to look at the results on the weekend. She's a very tight comp, and Uni Blacks this week are just going to be another really big challenge, and that'll be our 3rd game in a row on the road. So we won't get too carried away with it, and it's good for the boys. No doubt they were just so excited, and all their families, and our past players and all those sort of our Trinity community. It was just great for those guys that we could get on the board. But I think we're all pretty realistic enough to know that it's going to be another tough game this week, and really every game in A grade is going to be a super challenging game. So look, great that we won and fantastic to get on the board, but we know that we've got to front up again this week.
Surely must, though, so Brayden, give you guys enormous belief that you can not only match it with the really tough opponents, which you said there'll be plenty of in Prem A, but that you can actually win.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. And look, you know what? It was a trait last year that was pretty apparent with us. It's funny, it's been a bit of a journey, and I suppose one of the things is you need stability as a footy club. And I think over the past, this is our 4th season where our group on and off the field is stayed together. And I think they've just got a lot of trust in each other, that they know that, we might get beaten on the scoreboard, but they know they've got that trust in each other, that they know they won't give up, and they won't get overwhelmed. And it was funny, even against Uni Blues the previous week, there was definitely points in the game where you thought, we're going to get overwhelmed here. But even when you looked at scoring shots at the end of the game, was only 5 or 6 scoring shots different. And I just felt that's a real trait of our team, where the boys just stick at it, and I think that ability on the weekend, even though we got that break, but they just keep at it, and it's a really good trait to have, and it's something you just can't give a side a tablet, and they actually have this characteristic straight away. I think it's been born out of the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Is there anything in particular you guys have done to build that trait, that trust? Is there a lot of off-field bonding you do together that translates to on-field?
Not really. It's funny, Well, you know what it's like with the VAFA. I think one of the great things about the VAFA, and when you get to my age, you've seen a lot of things. I think what I've really loved with both our boys and what I see with the other mobs is that it's pure footy. You know, they play for the right reasons. They play because of their mates. And it was really evident on the weekend. You know, we talked about, and look, you know, playing on Anzac Day is such an honour. And we didn't mention, you know, like you know, you see it often talking about with the Anzac Day games, whereas you can't compare footy to war. But what you can compare is the Diggers, you know, their mateship it was something that really stood out. And I just think it's something that our boys really, really buy into. It's not fake. And when young blokes come in, like Trinity's a smaller school when you compare to A grade's a lot of the APS schools and the unis, so they're big clubs. But I think Trinity's a smaller school, and not a lot of players come out like we struggle for numbers with our 19s and our 2s, but they're very tight-knit and they have a lot of pride in the jumper. So I think that's something that's so super beneficial for us.
Donald, thanks so much for your time. As always, mate, congratulations on the win, as you mentioned. Uni Blacks this week. Uni Blacks versus Old Trinity. It's our SEN match of the day. You'll see it on vafa.com.au, live and free streaming in the afternoon. And on the SEN app, you can listen to our award-winning coverage. D-Mac, thanks for your time. Best of luck.
No worries, guys. Thanks a lot.
So Donald McDonald and Old Trinity on the board in 2026. Wonderful result for them. Well, there were two thrillers over the weekend in Premier Men's Round 2 action. The first was at Glen Huntly Park. Two late goals saw Caulfield Grammarians win a nail-biter over Old Haileybury. Caulfield kicked with a strong win. They seized the initiative. They kicked the first couple of goals of the game. The Bloods booted the next three. There were momentum swings all afternoon. The Fields with an 8-point lead at the first change. Haileybury then responded with the breeze at their backs. They controlled all the scoring. But unfortunately for Guy Martin's men, they kicked 2 goals for. They couldn't take full toll. And the Bloods only 12 points up at half-time. The breeze then dropped a little bit after half-time. Paul Sadler's men made a little bit more of their chances. They kicked 3-3 and they totally dominated the scoring. They kicked 3 goals compared to the 2 goals that Haileybury kicked the previous quarter. And that little difference, as is so often the case, ended up being the ultimate result. Early in the final term, Caulfield, they were a bit wasteful. They peppered away, only 5 behinds in the first 10 minutes. The Bloods then rallied, seized momentum with back-to-back goals, 2 in a minute. They hit the front midway through the term. They led by 5 points into Old Haileybury, entering time on, before Caulfield's Dylan Ting had his say. Kicked an opportunist goal at the 22-minute mark, put them back in front by a point, the Fields. Scores were then levelled a minute later, nothing in it. He then bobbed up again at the back of the pack. There was a big contested grab about 3 metres out from goal. He was hanging off the back, ball spilled straight over the back, turned around, put it through for another goal, put them in front at the 26-minute mark. Bloods just couldn't find the response in the end. The final margin, 4 points. Caulfield Grammarians, their first Premier Men's win since round 6 of 2023. And the team they beat that day was also Old Haileybury at Glen Huntly Park. So a great result for Paul Sadlerly and his men. What did Sats have to say?
Yeah, it had a lot to say just about the pressure, especially the second half. He thought they really lifted, and it translated into a bit of energy at three-quarter time. They come in, they were all up and about, and it was infectious is the key word he used. And they just said they were able to get 6 men in front of the footy again, which is something obviously with the breeze and the great rules in the VAFA. You can throw people behind the footy and sort of stem that flowing. Had a shout out for John O'Moran for his combative game in the midfield. Jack Elwood, great drive from stoppages. So yeah, a really good result for Caulfield, and I think it just shows that they belong at this level.
And Oscar Roberts went forward in a different role and kicked 4 goals for him. So again, one of those things we talk about early in the season, throwing guys into different positions and seeing what they get out of it. Well, they've found another one here. Now they've got a swing man.
Exactly right, and we know defenders are often frustrated forward, so it's great to see Oscar pop up. Dylan Ting, imagine how tall that story got with those late goals by the end of the night. I'm sure he's told a few, but it's just, again, these games are so important early in the year. The sides aren't fully feared, they're not up and running completely, Matty, and you get these sort of 4 points now, you look in 16 weeks' time and what a world of difference it could make in any situation.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a case of how you get them, that you get them at this point in year, and runs on the board and wins on the board are vital at this stage to get your campaign up and running. Guy Martin was really disappointed, though, as the Bloods coach. He said that they were really poor at some of the fundamental basics, particularly some of the defensive parts of the game, spoiling from behind, accountability down back, and just general sort of communication. They didn't play the windy conditions very well. In that second term, they kicked 3 goals, 8 If they were able to make more of their opportunities, then it could have been a very different story indeed. And then as the wind died off throughout the course of the game, as the match progressed in the second half, they didn't adjust back to normal conditions. They kept playing as if there was really a breeze, and that made it difficult for them. But also paid a bit of credit to Caulfield, who made it very difficult for the Bloods to score throughout the game.
Yeah, and it was the non-negotiable stuff, wasn't it? I mean, the things you talked about, they're all mindset things, not talent things. So he said he's going to have a good, hard, sit-down conversation with the players this week and just sort of work through that sort of stuff and continue to refine their style just 2 games in under their new coach. So a wonderful win there for Caulfield. The other heart-stopper was at the Snake Pit. What a game this was. St Bernard's also came from behind in time on in the final term to snatch victory. In their case, it was over the 2024 Premiers Old Scotch. The Cards kicked 2 goals in the opening 8 minutes and got away to a great start. Then Will Clark kicked another one. They led by 13 points at quarter time. Turnover scores were the key in this game once again. Both teams kicked 2 goals in the second term. All of them, all 4 goals came from turnovers. And it allowed Scotch to be 11 points up at half-time. Third quarter, they got out to a 3-goal lead, did Old Scotch. But credit to the Snow Dogs. They just gritted their teeth. They refused to allow the Cards to slip away. They worked overtime to haul them in, and it was only 1 kick the difference at 3-quarter time. And again, Old Scotch kicked in the last quarter, as we so often do. We talked about it last week against Caulfield. They just have these little burst sections of a game where they can just put a gap between them and the opposition. That's often enough to win. Ferguson and McMillan kicked goals. They got out to 17 points up, approaching time on, and you're thinking, oh yeah, we've seen this movie before. But Matthew Watson had looked really dangerous all day up forward for the Snow Dogs, and you just had a sense that if they could feed him enough, he could potentially get them back into the game. We always get that sense when we watch the Snow Dogs. He's just such an imposing presence up forward. Sure enough, took a mark. A beautiful long-range goal from outside 50. Got it back to 11 points at the 18-minute mark. Then took another great juggling mark against a couple of defenders. He missed that shot. Got it back to 10, but you could just feel that the atmosphere at the Snake Pit had changed. The crowd, the home crowd was behind them, and suddenly they're realising, hey, we're still in this. We're a chance. It's only 10 points. Karan Barati, who'd been absolutely fantastic, he kicked a goal from the 35 out. So it was a 3-point game with 25 minutes gone. Ball went straight back to the middle. Quick kick out of there from Marcus Holland. Dropped Matthew Watson, 2 defenders, 1 in front of him, 1 behind him, used his body beautifully, took the grab, 45 out, went back, kicked the goal. Dogs got the lead. Scotch surged the ball forward late. Ollie Barter had a left foot snap on the run that hit the post, would have given Scotch the lead back, but as it was, St Bernard's hung on. Siren sounded with the ball deep in Scotch's scoring zone. St Bernard's with their first win over Old Scotch since 2017, snapping a 9-game losing streak with a 2-point victory. It was a wonderful performance from them. And again, off the back of them being belted last week by Old Brighton, so important, like Trinity did, they found a response straight away in round 2, and 1 poor performance doesn't become 2, and 2 doesn't become 3, and you drop your head and the season starts to get away from you. So wonderful performance from St Bernard's, and Steve Alessio, I'd imagine, must have been absolutely delighted.
Yeah, he was absolutely delighted, especially with Zach Overman. His performance, the brick wall, you could call him, it was unbelievable. 26 disposals, 19 intercepts, which absolutely huge. He said his performance was solid down back, which I just love. Just
solid,
understated, keeping a lid on it. That they were starting to see what they worked on the training track, and that's what the great thing is. As Alessio alludes to, the competition is relentless. Every week you're going to get a different challenger. There's no under illusions. They'll go into a game against St Kevin's now that it's going to be another tough challenge. They can't live on this, but he was just thrilled the way the mindset shifted and the ability to bounce back. And it says a lot for a side that has lost a bit of experience as well.
Yeah, and it's sort of when, like Old Trinity, that just carries you through the tough times during the year. You can look back and go, hey, we are capable of being very good A-grade teams if we play our way. From a Mark Knapp perspective, what did Old Scotch make of it?
Well, he noted that they were plus 11 in inside 50s over the course of the match, were Old Scotch, but they weren't able to lock the ball in there. It came out a bit too easily, and also noted the game of Zach Overman. Didn't use the word solid, but noted that it consistently intercepted the ball and created rebound opportunities.
He was better than solid, wasn't he?
It was an all right game.
What did he have? 26 possessions, 19 intercepts, 16 contested, 13 1%ers, 12 spoils, 12 rebound 50s. That's pretty solid.
No, a pretty good game from Zach Overman, all things considered. And further to Mark Knapp, what he was saying, they were in front for the majority of the match, but as we've sort of already said, St Bernard's always managed to keep themselves just within striking distance, and they were able to get on a run. They could very easily reclaim the lead, which they did. They showed great character to win the key moments and ultimately the game. And just quietly, another stat I picked up here from a Snow Dogs perspective, that's 3 in a row in the snake pick now, taking back to last year. And given that we noted that they really struggled to win at home for large periods of
early last year, one of their first 7.
They won the last 2 games of last year, which were against Old Xaverians and St Kevin's, 2 teams vying for final spots. And now they've beaten last year's runners-up. That's 3 pretty decent teams that they've beaten at home now.
Back to the dog pound again.
Yes.
Out at St Bernard's College. And it also sets up a fantastic game, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But now you've got Old Scotch playing Old Zabs in that preliminary final rematch next week, both coming off losses.
Yeah, no, that's going to be
narrow
a
losses.
Ripping game, that one.
Yeah. So the University Derby is always a hotly contested affair. The first Derby of 2026, no exception. Blacks and Blues at Melbourne Uni. Blues got the early jump. They kicked 2 goals in the opening 5 minutes. Then Blacks took control, and they had 3 goals in 8 minutes of their own to lead by 7 points at quarter time. The Blues then flipped the script in the second term. It became a bit of an arm wrestle. Sam Grimley booted the only goal of the term 7 minutes in, and the Blues went to half-time with a 1-point lead. It was a really low-scoring game. Neither side was able to break it open. The game did open up a bit in the third quarter. The Blacks peppered away early, but again, it's a bit of a recurring theme this week, but they wasted their opportunities. They kicked 2-5 in the first 21 minutes. They got out to an 11-point lead, but it really could have been a fair bit more. All that effort was undone when Sam Grimley then suddenly decided he'd take the game by the scruff of the neck. We talked about Stewart and Grimley last week, and when they're on, they're so hard to stop. Well, to this point in the game, late in the third, he'd only kicked 1 goal too, but he suddenly got off the chain. Took a soaring mark over a pack next to the behind post, kicked a goal, followed by another contested mark 15 metres out 3 minutes later, kicked another goal. Then took a third mark in the goal square shortly after. 3 Grimley goals in 4.5 minutes. An 11-point deficit became a 7-point lead. He then kicked his 5th goal to open the final term, and the Blues were away. 2 goals in 2 minutes to Stewart and a Koch blew the game wide open. And while the Blacks fought on, the damage was done. Uni Blues home in the end by 21 points. They remain undefeated. The Blacks start 0-2 for a 4th straight season. And the big move here, we know Stewart and Grimley are always going to be that 2-headed monster up forward. But the arrival of Brett Ebert, Brayden May, he's slotted in across half-back alongside Cam O'Shea. That's released Marty Gleeson, the Woodrow medalist, into the midfield. He had another 26 disposals, 6 clearances alongside Geordie LaCava, who had 28 and 8 rebounds. That has just given them an extra dimension in that midfield, hasn't it?
It's really exciting what a simple magnet move can do. And like Marty's always been a really good winner of the footy, but to now take that further up the ground, he's got a booming kick as well. He's going to get in and under. He's probably not known for the maybe AFL fans that have watched him play. He was more the outside player, but he's super tough. For a guy that's got a bit of a slender frame, he gets the footy and finds plenty of it and just drives it forward. And sometimes, as we've touched on, you just need to give opportunities when you got guys like Grimley down there. And Sam Grimley was actually challenged by Matt Smith. He's told you here, Jace, that they wanted him to find ways to get involved, and he certainly got involved. And I feel sorry for whoever was opposed to him during that run. There's nothing worse than being a defender and being on an island with the guy that's got his form up and about with such a sudden burst.
Yeah, he's very hard to stop. Sam Conway, from a ruck perspective, every year we have a look and see, hey, who are the key rucks, the absolute blue chip rucks in Premier Men's each season. In fact, we look at them in all the divisions, really. But obviously, Sam Grant is, he's playing VFL footy. And Sam Conway's come in and he's had 25 disposals, 15 contested, 15 clearances, another dominant display. They've got themselves a weapon there, the Blacks, Sam Conway.
Yeah, and if you can get yourself a gun ruck in these sorts of competitions, you're halfway to making yourself a really competitive team. 60 hitouts. Yeah. He recorded at the weekend. The next most, James Stewart picked up 10.
What did Dale Bauer make of the performance?
Well, Dale Bauer noted that there were 6 forced changes that the Blacks had to make coming into the game, which is never ideal. The positive that he takes away from that, though, is that they're more confident with their depth this year compared to last. So even though that will be tested, he's confident that they've got the cattle to get the job done. They had periods of play where they were able to get the game on their terms and have it play out the way they wanted to, but they just didn't get enough reward on the scoreboard, which we mentioned. Scoring came at a premium at times during the match. And they put themselves in a reasonable position midway through the third term, but they weren't able to make the most of that opportunity. And then when the Blues got their go, as you mentioned, late in the third and early in the last, they were able to capitalise, and that ultimately proved to be the difference.
Brayden, they're 0-2 Blacks, and you might look, if you haven't watched their games, you'll be thinking, oh no, they've had another terrible start. As I said, 4th year in a row, they're 0-2. They're not playing bad football. They were the better team against Old Haileybury for 3 quarters last week. And then this week, they were right in it against the Blues. And as we say, they had their opportunities, they just didn't take them. 0-2 they're going to cause some problems, Blacks. It's not all doom and gloom at 0-2, and Dale Bauer was saying that. Lots of great signs, and he knows there's some exciting footy building, which sounds like a strange thing sometimes to say when you're 0-2, but take that out of it, and they're actually playing some decent footy.
Yeah, I think there's some exciting things to look forward to. Like, you see Conway win the footy, and they're only 2 games in with this new midfield duo and the big dominant ruckman. In previous years, they've probably had to almost shark the contest when you don't have someone that you know is probably going to win 75% of the hitouts as well. So guys like Loftus and Moorfield, they're going to take time to win the footy as well. So once that clicks, they're going to put some scores on the board as well, because the forwards will understand, all right, we don't have to probably stand back. We can stand forward 5 metres and really get out, lead up, and stranger things have happened. Don't be surprised if they turn around and win this week.
Yeah, they've got some really good players too. Let's not forget, we mentioned Loftus and James Clark, who were both outstanding last year, and Patrick Smith, really good again. Like, he's a really promising prospect. Had another 22 touches with 7 clearances, so he's going to add another dimension to them as well. So there's plenty of talent there at Blacks, plenty. So they are, as Donald McDonald mentioned earlier, they're going to be a tough beat every single week. Well, Old Brighton posted their 20th consecutive home win after they comfortably accounted for St Kevin's. The final margin of 24 points. To be honest, a little bit deceptive, Matty. You were down there at Brighton Beach Oval. They rocketed out of the blocks. It was the most amazing first 5 minutes of a game you'll ever see. They kicked 3 goals in the opening 4 minutes. You're thinking, oh, gee, this is going to be ugly. Then Jack Bent got his first touch for St Kevin's, and it was absolute beauty. Kicked a snap goal on his left from about 45 out. St Kevin's tried to steady, but then Tunners, they were just relentless. Another 5 goals in 15 minutes from midway through the first quarter. Got out to 43 points at quarter time. Scob were butchering the ball by foot, just 29% kick efficiency in the first stanza. Tunners made them pay. In fairness, Scob did fight on really, really well. They kicked a couple of late ones, got it back to 24 points. But make no mistake, this was another dominant performance from Old Brighton.
Oh, yeah, no, this one was all about Old Brighton. You mentioned that opening term, very strong breeze favouring the end that Old Brighton were kicking to, and they made the most of it. 8 goals to 1 in the first term. That bank goal you mentioned, outstanding into the breeze in particular. But other to that, it was all the Tunners, really. And the game was set up in the first quarter. Funnily enough, St Kevin's won the match after quarter time.
Yeah.
But the damage was done in that
24 inside 50s to 5 in the last quarter when they had the breeze. Now you can say maybe the Tunners took the foot off, or was it a case of Scob actually starting to click and putting some things together?
Combination of both. I think St Kevin's definitely improved, and I think they might have sensed half an opportunity as well, because they were much better defending in the third term into the breeze, and obviously got their go with it in the final term, but just too much of a deficit for them to haul down overall.
They kicked 4 goals in 5 minutes to get it to 20 points at the 24-minute mark. Was there any sense at all that there was a chance to pull off a miracle, or were they just too far back?
It needed to be perfect. It needed to be perfect football from them. I think, we got to the 23rd, 24th minute, and the quarters have been going for about low 30s, so we would have thought another 4 goals in 10 minutes. Not impossible, but it was always going to need just about everything to go right from a St Kevin's point of view.
So another dominant performance from Old Brighton. Brayden, Marcel Bruin walked away and said what?
Really impressed with his mids. They worked really hard. Billy Coates, obviously, just a big fella in the ruck. We know how good he is for Scob. And their clearance and contested just created opportunities for the forwards, and they made the most of them, especially early, as Matty touched on with a brilliant lead. Defenders did a good job after quarter time in particular. With those quick entries, it's nothing worse. You get stuck one-on-one, but they defended those really well, and they allowed the game to be set up behind the ball, and that was fantastic. And he was most pleased with their response. When St Kevin's came, they're a young side still, Old Brighton. I think we forget just how young they are with the changes that occurred in the off-season. And they really accepted the challenge and said, look, we're the number 1 team at the moment. You're going to have to come beat us.
Speaking of youngsters, I want to talk to you about the ruck battle. Josh
Yeah.
Carr, the young ruckman from Old Brighton, who we saw in the pre-season in the under-19s team, who stepped up to share the rucking role now with the likes of Felix Flockhart, up against Billy Coates, who's the established star. He's been the best ruckman in Premier Men's for a long time. He's the benchmark. How did Josh Carr go against him?
He was fantastic, and I'm glad you mentioned this, because I did want to mention Josh Carr's name as well. He was very good in the opening game of the season in the ruck, and yes, started on the head-to-head with Billy Coates, but Carr was fantastic, and he was the one who set the tone with his ruck work, but not just his ruck work, his follow-up work as well around the ground. He's a ball-winning ruckman, so his job is not done as soon as the hit-out is over. He can follow up, and he can get the hand pass out and help win the clearance for Old Brighton, and his work in the stoppages really helped to set the tone early for the Tunners. So he's definitely one to keep a close eye on throughout the course of the season. Feels like Old Brighton have found another one.
Yeah, and I think the AFL recruiters will be keeping a reasonably close eye on him as well. He's a really, really exciting prospect. What did Anthony Lynch have to say after the game?
Well, his takeaway is that Old Brighton are still the benchmark of the competition, still the best team in it at this stage. He noted an 8-goal-to-1 first quarter was unacceptable, was the term that he used from a St Kevin's point of view. And although technically, and we did mention this, they won the next 3 quarters, it was all for nothing because the margin was just too big for St Kevin's to run down in the end. They've played the best 2 teams of 2025, though, in the opening round. They faced Old Xavs in round 1 and now Old Brighton, and they were 1 and 2 in the home and away season last year. So they've got a pretty good idea of where they sit in the grand scheme of things, and as things stand, they're a bit off that group. So they've got some work to do, plenty of time to get it done, but to get this season back on track, they've got a bit to work on.
Small sample size, what are the areas that you look at and think, okay, these are the areas that St Kevin's will just need to bridge to close that gap to the very best teams in the competition, knowing that the likes of Paddy Kerr and Luke Winter aren't there. So some core pieces of their puzzle for a number of years, they're now integrating new pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah, it never helps when you're taking star power out of any side, and every team is going to struggle off the back of that. It's honestly probably not a lot. It's probably not a lot between the likes of St Kevin's and the real sort of top teams. You look at some of the slick ball movement that Old Brighton were able to pull off, and it requires sort of 5, 6, 7 possessions in the chain, and all really slick, really quick. And St Kevin's are probably getting 75, 80% of those possessions right, but there'll be one that sort of lets them down along the way, and it breaks the whole thing up. But when you're up against teams that are as ruthless as Old Brighton and Old Xavs, they're always going to make you pay.
Yeah, Anthony Lynch has been hammering fundamentals, hasn't he, the first couple of weeks? That's an area that obviously they're just getting back to basics to get those elements right, and then the chemistry will come. So that wraps up Premier Men's for round 2. We'll look ahead to round 3 with our tips later, but really excited. Round 3 will be showcase round, which we do once a year, where every Premier Men's match is streamed live and free on vafa.com.au. So this coming Saturday afternoon, you can log onto the VAFA website. We'll have a mega wall set up. You can have all 5 games going at once. Sit back and have a look. Just flick between the games. Pick the ones you want. If you're down at the footy club, you can put it up on the big screen, have all the games going at once. It's a wonderful initiative thanks to MySport Live. That's coming up this weekend. It will be showcase round in Premier Men's. Well, next we will talk about Premier B Men's. Another fascinating weekend of results there. That's next on For the Love of the Game.
The VAFA Big V Luncheon returns in 2026 on June 5 at the RACV City Club. A celebration of community, tradition and the very best of Big V representative football. Join the 2026 squads, past greats and supporters as we honour the game, including the induction of 3 Big V champions, recognised for their outstanding contribution to the mighty Big V. And don't miss the proud moment for the future as the 2026 Senior Big V men's and women's teams are officially presented with their Guernseys. It's history, pride and passion all in one room. Tickets available now at vafa.com.au.
Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk Premier B Men's. And the man who's allegedly our Premier B Men's guru, although I'm just flicking through the tips, 3 out of 10 he's tipped in the first 2 weeks. We're going to give him a chance. It's a very even competition. Matthew Donald, what did you make of round 2?
Yes, emphasis on allegedly. But the one thing that I'm taking away from the second weekend of the Premier B season is that just like last year, this is a really even competition. So many great stories coming across the way, and there's some really intriguing contests coming up this week. A lot of teams that we expected to do really well have had a bit of a slow start to the year, and a couple of the teams who have come up from Premier C have actually started the campaign really well. So lots of intriguing storylines to come out of the opening fortnight.
As it happens, the same as with Premier Men's, in that there's 2 teams at the bottom of the ladder that haven't won a game. There's only 2 teams that have won both, and everyone else is just in the middle, Brayden, which just says we're in for another traffic jam.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and sorry that you have to try and predict this, Matty. It's great content, and it makes it much more exciting to talk about. We're not getting the same 4 or 5 teams winning up and beating up on the lower sides, but Matty, there were some great results. Where can you take us?
Well, I want to start with De La Salle, who had a bit of a tough old time of it with Premier B last year, and they got their first win of the campaign with a big 58-point win over Old Campbell at the weekend. They got off to a good start, 4 goals to 2 in the opening term. The lead was never really threatened. They won every quarter, led at every change, and kept building the lead. Big win in the end, 16-12, 108 to 7-8, 50. Standout was Luke Healy. He took 9 marks, 5 of them inside 50, and got himself 4 goals too.
He's such a good player.
We saw his promise last year in Premier B, but now we're seeing a bit of product.
Yeah, so last year in Premier Men's, they went winless. So what's that losing streak for them now that's been snapped?
So that's a 19-game losing streak dating, 20 game losing streak
dating back to the grand final
the year prior in 2024.
So what does that just mean for the club?
Oh well, this is huge for the club. I mean, to go so long without a win, to finally get one on the board, get it early in the season as well, really get the monkey off the back early. And Nick Hyland was really happy with the win. He was just pleased to get the win. Thought they set it up in the first term. As I said, just a strong start. They had to defend into a really strong breeze in that opening term and managed to win it. As I say, 4 goals to 2. They defended the ground really well. They were calculated with the ball movement. That gave them some quality entries inside 50. But for Old Campbell and Neil Connell, it was pretty much the opposite. That when they had those opportunities, weren't able to make the most of them when going forward. And that's ultimately what proved to be the difference. And when Dealer had their term of the breeze, they made it count.
Have Old Campbell been the surprise packet in an unfortunate way in the first couple of rounds? They were right there last year in the premiership mix, and they've had a couple of disappointing games to start 2026.
Them and Old Ivanhoe, who were the minor premiers last year, who I think we all said we're pretty much a certainty to at least get through to the grand final, promotion through to Premier A. Interesting, those are the 2 teams without a win. They face each other this week.
Yeah,
so there's a big bounty on those 4 points.
Massive game. You're not to go zipping 3. Hey, Collegians, who were the other team aside from D-Lar to come down from Prem Men's to Prem B, had another win, 16-10, 106, defeated Willie CYMS, 8-11-59, over at Fearon by 47 points. Another great performance from Geordie McKenzie's men.
Yeah, no, it was a good win for Collegians. There was a pretty tense opening term, pretty tough going. But from the next 2 quarters, they kicked 11 of the next 14 goals, Collegians, and that ultimately set it up 16-10, 106 to 8-11-59. Campbell Walker, the skipper for the Lions, he was terrific. 27 touches, 10 clearances, and a couple of goals. Ben Van Twest, 39 touches, game high for him. So they were very good across the board, Collegians. And Geordie McKenzie was pleased with, in particular, the way that the players were able to play after quarter time. They started off a bit slow and a bit wasteful going forward in that opening stanza when they had their opportunity with the breeze, but thought that the work from the second quarter onwards was the type of footy that they really want to be playing on a weekly basis this season. So he was very happy with that. Coach Contazoglu of Willie, he said that it was the second term that ultimately proved to be the difference, that he thought they had a pretty strong first quarter. He was really pleased with that. But then they kicked 4 goals in the first 12 minutes. That second term, Collegians broke the game open, and then they were never really able to recover from there.
And you touched on a streak ending just before. What about a streak extending in the form of Bo Morris, who I think I'd put it down to they've been the biggest surprise packet in-form team across the entire VAFA.
Right.
I personally thought that they might have some early struggles. They lost a lot of experience, big V reps and some guns, but 2 wins in a row now, Matty.
Yeah, and that extends the run to 19 games. They didn't lose a game from round 3 last year all the way to the Prem C Premiership, and now they're 2-0. They're a great story in Prem B to start the season. That sort of emphasises how even this competition is. So many surprise packets. 16-16, 112 to 9-9, 63 over Old Geelong. They kept the OG scoreless in the opening term. They piled on 12 scores themselves, kicked 3-9, so it could have been an even bigger buffer at the first stage. Max Holt kicked 4 goals from 6 disposals for Bo Morris for the Sharks. So he was very impressive up forward. As far as the coaches were concerned, Josh Burke, well, he said that they've made no secret of their focus on standing up in the contest. He's always felt that the attack and the defence is pretty good from what the Sharks have been able to retain from last year into this, but it was always going to be about the work in the midfield. So he was really thrilled with the way that they were able to stand up in the midfield. There's been a big emphasis on that for the Sharks this year. Was thrilled with what they were able to do at the weekend. Nick Dixon said that it was a pretty disappointing day from an Old Geelong perspective, that they were outplayed in all facets of the game by Bo Morris. He was very impressed with how the Sharks played. He's confident that his Chargers can bounce back. He's confident in the resilience that the group have, and they're looking forward to putting in a better performance this week.
Speaking of bounce-back performances, Old Melburnians came up with one after being beaten in the opening round. They defeated Old Ivanhoe here at Alstonwick Park, 13-10-88, defeating the Hoas 9-10-64 by 24 points.
Yeah, another one that was a bit of a cagey opening quarter, just the 1 goal scored, but then the Old Melburnians put the foot on the gas in the second term, 8 goals to 1. Set up the win for them in the end. They had a 38-point lead at halftime. The Hoas did respond. They got it back to 10 points at 3-quarter time. They had a good third quarter, but then the Old Melburnians settled. They eventually won 13-10, 88 to 9-10-64. Hugo Dale with 4 goals for the OMs. Dickie Christian, 12 clearances and 28 touches. He was very good. Will Murphy, arguably the best player on the ground, 32 touches and 2 goals as well for the Hoas. He was very good. James Byrne, he was very happy with the effort that the boys showed and the way that they responded after that defeat in the opening day of the season. So they've got a bit of a blueprint now on how they want the game to look when they've got it in their terms. It's a case of bringing that every single week. Xavier Nash, though, of Old Ivanhoe, he was encouraged despite the defeat. He said the results didn't go their way, obviously, but he's positive that they took steps in the right direction. Gave full credit to the OMs. The second quarter was where the game was won and lost, and lauded their execution in that second quarter. So that was where he thought the game was won, that they just in that second term were able to make the most of their chances.
And then the final game of the round, Old Kerry, another bounce-back performance, probably normal service resume with what we'd probably expect with the quality that they have on their list.
Yeah, big win against Ajax, who were the great story of last week. So they were able to get the job done. 52-point win in the end. This scoreline's quite an interesting one. 18-21. 129 to 11-11, 77. They've kicked 26 goals, 43 in the opening 2 weeks of the season, Old Kerry. So there's no fear on reserve excuse this week for the Panthers, but maybe a bit of goal kicking practice is in order. Nick Bruin kicked 4 goals, 1. He was the most effective forward, and the only one who was able to find the big sticks with any sort of regularity. Toby Sheasel kicked 3 for the Jackers, though. Luke Giles was most impressed with the way that his team were able to set up behind the ball. He said, "We were really pleased with the way that we defended. The Ajax are a good side," and was very impressed with them as well. The thing that he noted was that after the game, he's got to put in his best sort of 6 or 7 players for the match report. He kept chopping and changing it because he honestly thought there were as many as 15 players who deserved to be in there.
It's always a good sign.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what you want as a coach. So he was really pleased with not just the way that they played, but just the evenness of the contribution across the board. Lockie Buzzard, the Ajax coach, he just noted that Kerry were just too good. They're a side that he expects are going to be right up there come the end of the season, and so it proved in this match. They were just too good. Did note that they were very poor in parts throughout the course of the game. They made it difficult for ourselves for themselves rather with their forward entries and some of the basic fundamentals. They were only 16 points down at 3/4 time. It's worth noting the Jackers that they got themselves within striking range, but Buzzard could see that it probably wasn't really a true reflection on the way the game was panning out, and the fact that we look at that 39 scores to 22 is probably indicative of that.
Yeah. So after 2 rounds of Premier B men's football, Beaumaris and Collegians on top, undefeated. Old Ivanhoe and Old Camberwell down the bottom, yet to win a game. Everybody else is 1-1, so it speaks to such an even competition. Let's talk Premier C men's now and run through our results from round 2. Mazenod, 35-point winners over Old Peninsula, 16-15, 111. Defeated Old Peninsula, 11-10, 76. Fitzroy, 12-8, 80. Defeated Parkdale Vultures, 6-8, 44 by 36 points. Marcelin had a 29-point win over Glenara Old McKinnon, 15-12, 102. To the Griffins, 11-7, 73. St Bede's Mentone Tigers, 7-19, 61. Defeated Pegs, 6-8, 44 by 17 points. And the final game of the round, a massive win for Hampton Rovers, 22-14, 146. Defeated Ormond, 14-7, 91 by 55 points. Ormond kicked 14 goals, still lost by 55 points. That's a huge win for the Rovers. What do you make of those results, Brayden? What jumps out at you?
Oh, I think we almost go a grand final preview, if I'm honest, in Fitzroy and Parkdale Vultures. On Anzac Day, it was a blockbuster, perfect day for footy. Disappointingly for Tunwatch, Mitch Brown held to
just one goal, yeah.
One goal. Spoke to Jack Dalton the other day. He was super honest. He gave a job to a guy by the name of Will Hodgman. Looking at Will's form, played a bit of reserves footy the last 2 years, in and out of the senior side, and they just said, shut him out of the game. Kicked 1 goal and
it's a great effort.
Played a great game. They had a couple of debutants as well. One of the young fellas have come in. The Roys actually had a couple of debutants. The one that caught the eye was Alistair McQuire. So he's a young fellow. He took the year off footy last year. He's come through the call to Cannons. He's been involved with the junior program. Senior debut, and he's slotted in across half back, tall, rangy type, and Dalton reckons he's a star. Just one of these guys that had 4 guys out, top liners, I might add. They weren't just guys that were picked 18 to 22. So 4 of probably their best 10 were out through forced change. A bit of illness going through the VAFA grades on the weekend. And guys just took the opportunity. The Roy's depth is unbelievable. So I've got them as my flag favourites after that weekend. But the wild card I want to throw in there is Mazenod. They're looking really good under Andrew Pickering. He's a great guy. He's a first-time coach as well.
Yeah, former legend of the club.
He's fantastic. They've picked up a few. When I say picked up, guys have coming back. I think that drawback factor, come home, be part of something special. They're going to push some sides this year, and I'm looking forward to this weekend. Hampton Rovers v Fitzroy in a huge game between 2 sides undefeated.
Yeah, so there's 3 undefeated teams in Premier C men's after 2 rounds. Fitzroy, Hampton and Mazenod all on 8 points. Then Parkdale Pegs, St Bede's Mentone Tigers, Marcelin all on 4 points. And then 3 teams yet to win a game, which is Old Peninsula, Glenira, Old McKinnon and Ormond to round out Premier C men's footy for round 2 of 2026. Let's talk divisional men's while we're here. the divisions always throw up plenty of interesting results. We're going to start with Division 1 men's football, round 2 action. And St Mary's St Legions, a big win, 15-9-99, defeated UHSBU 10-7-67 by 32 points. Paran, 12-7-79, defeated Q 7-10-52. Parkside kicked the sweep, 25-17-167, defeated Old Yarra 4-7-31. Preston Bull Ants 15-10-100, defeated Oakley 11-12-78 by 22 points. And there was a game abandoned, Brayden, between Brunswick and Monash Blues.
Yeah, unfortunately, one of the Brunswick players suffered a pretty badly broken leg, so we wish him all the best. It's never nice to see anyone injured, but we know that Brunswick are a great club. They'll wrap their arms around him, and hopefully he recovers well, and it doesn't impact life too much, because what we do on a Saturday is why we play footy, for a bit of fun. We're not out there to win premierships, obviously, but be with our mates. We do it as an outlet, so wishing him all the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk Division 2 men's scores from the weekend. Matty, how'd they go?
Yeah, so we'll start with Powerhouse, who got a big 64-point win over Aquinas, 18-16, 124 to 9-660. Canterbury, too good for North Brunswick, 16-18, 114 to 9-14-68. How about this for accuracy across the board, though, at John Pascoe Faulkner Reserve? Elsonwick, 23-7, 145.
Good going on a breezy day.
Derry Penola, 10-5-65. So 33 goals, 12 combined. That's pretty good goal kicking, if you ask me. Whitefriars, 12-16, 88 against MHSOB, 8-11-59. And then a thriller at Ransford Oval. West Brunswick, 7-15-57, defeating South Melbourne, 7-12-54. So a 3-point win there for West Brunswick.
Division 3 action.
Yeah, I know the two games, obviously. Richmond Central probably stamped their authority as one of the top two early on with a 15-10-100 to 8-11-59 win over Hawthorn. Then Wattle Park, they were obviously very excited to get on the field. 33-16, 214 to a 1-4-10 win over Albert Park. I think the Animals are going to take some stopping.
That's a sensational result for them, 204-point win over Albert Park. That is the men's divisions done in the books. That is our VAFA men's competition done in the books for round 2. After the break on For the Love of the Game, we'll talk VAFA women's. That's next.
Hey guys, it's Dylan Buckley here. Footy's back and so is Tackle Your Feelings round. As a proud partner of the VAFA, Tackle Your Feelings is ready to pull on the boots at your club this season to deliver free mental health training. So be a champ for mental health this season. Email pranav@vafa.com.au. That's pranav@vafa.com.au to secure your club's spot for a Tackle Your Feelings workshop.
Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk Premier Women's Football, and joining us is Fitzroy gun Lauren Atkinson, also our VAFA media reporter for Premier B Women. So Loz is going to talk us through Premier Women and Premier B Women. Loz, welcome.
G'day, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your time. We seriously appreciate it. Fitzroy player, of course you are, and you mentioned to me just recently that you feel like they're building something special at Fitzroy. A great win over the weekend. You defeated St Kevin's by 20 points, 6-5-41 to St Kevin's 3-3-21. Let's talk Roy's first. What have you made of the first couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's been a super exciting start for us. Obviously got the 2 wins. We had a big win against Williamstown, and then obviously faced a tough test on the weekend with St Kevin's. But yeah, super happy we could get the chocolates there as well. We know they've been a benchmark of the competition for so long, so yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it's a fantastic performance.
Yeah.
So when you said to me a couple of weeks ago, I feel like we're building something special here, what's giving you the sense of that? Where's that coming from?
Yeah, it just feels like we've had a great pre-season. It's felt like we're building something. We've had some great recruits. We've got Beth Wilson and Belle Wilcott came in. We've got a couple of our old players that came back that are absolute stars. Teresa Zampaglione and Sim Mooney. They've both played Big V before, and they're both back with us full time this year. And then a bunch of juniors have stepped up, and they're all really great as well. And we've got a big squad. We've got the 3 teams, so we've had great numbers on the track, and it's just, it feels like 2026 could be our year.
Lauren, congratulations on a terrific win. Very cagey opening half, 1 goal apiece at the main break, but then in the third term, 5 goals to 1 really broke it open. What was said at halftime, and what did your team do so well in that third term?
I think that we did feel like we were really in it at halftime. Like, I know it was that low scoring side, but they'd only kicked their goal really early in that first term. And we'd had kind of some chances, but weren't really making the most of them. So coach just really backed us, told us to believe in ourselves. And then we were just able to get the game going on our terms.
Let's run through the other results from round 2 of William Buck Premier Women's. Caulfield Grammarians 18-12, 120 big winners over Westbourne 2-2-14 by 106 points. We mentioned Fitzroy 20-point winners over St Kevin's down at Rigetti. At Loft Reserve, Q 10-10-70 defeated Williamstown CYMS 2-1-13 by 57 points. Old Geelong, great win for them to get on the board. 9-9-63 defeated Old Brighton 4-4-28. And Old Scotch, the reigning champs, 11-8-74 defeated West Brunswick 4-5-29. But the news on that one, gentlemen, is that Old Scotch have actually forfeited or been disqualified from that game for playing in an eligible player. So they lose those points, and those points go to West Brunswick. Lauren, those results around the grounds, what have you made of those? What have you made of the first couple of weeks and the teams to beat?
Yeah, it's been exciting. I think it's mostly kind of gone the way we would have thought with Caulfield and Scotch getting those big results. I didn't know about that. The points.
It's just breaking news, Lauren. You're the first to find out.
Yeah. Wow, hot off the press. But yeah, as expected, those two will definitely be teams to beat this year. Then a bit of variation in the others. It's still quite hard to say, I'd say, early on, because not everyone's played everyone. But it'll be interesting to see, I guess, West Brunswick, Q, or Geelong, watches on them. And I thought Old Brighton in their first game against St Kevin's, they seemed pretty strong there as well.
Yeah, it feels like year to year, Loz, that the number of quality teams and the depth of talent across the competition continues to grow. We saw last year that there was nothing much between the top 4 teams, and it feels like that might extend to sort of the top 5 or 6 or even 7 teams this year.
Yeah, I hope so. Obviously, it's super impressive what those top sides have been able to do, but I think it's more exciting and good for the whole competition if it can be a bit more even. So, yeah, keen to see what happens throughout the year. You're
also our Premier B women's reporter for VAFA Media, so we're going to talk through round 2 of Premier B action and get your thoughts on that. Bo Morris, 8-8-56, defeated Old Melburnians 3-3-21 by 35 points at Elstonwick Park. Port Melbourne Chargers, a big win, 11-13-79, defeated Glen Ira Old McKinnon 1-5-11 by 68 points. Parkside got the job done again, 4-4-28 over Old Yarra 3-4-22 in a tight one at Pitcher Park. And Old Zabs, a big win, 16-9-105, Latrobe Uni 2-2-14. Loz, as you're putting your report together this week for VAFA Media, what's jumping out at you as the main storylines?
Yeah, I think the headline's got to be Parkside jumping up from Division 2, so that's up 2 divisions, and then they're 2-0. Huge story for them, and also they got it done in 2 close games, so they should really be building their belief off the back of that. Also in round 1, I think they started strong and held off the side, and in round 2, I think Old Yarra Cobras had the hot start, and they had to come back, and they won by a goal there as well.
It's been an impressive start, hasn't it, to jump up a couple of divisions and do that. Port Chargers in their second year, they've certainly started strongly.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking to their coach, Harriet Cooper, in the pre-season, she said that the key takeaway from last year was the importance of consistency and putting together that four-quarter effort. And I think, after they impressed in their first season already, inaugural season. So I think off the back of that, they should definitely be able to make a deep charge into the year this year.
Early days, but it feels like Bo Morris has got a bit of momentum across their men's and women's programs. Another big win for them, 35 points over OMs.
Yeah, 100%. I think tough year for Bo Morris last year on and off the field. They had a good start in Prem B, and then they were regraded up into Prem A. I think they only got the 1 win, but I thought they were actually really competitive across the year. So I'm sure they can take everything they've learned from being exposed to the top level of footy back into this year. New coach as well. They've got 2 strong sides, and I think they will have built a lot of resilience and trust in each other from last year, and they should yeah, they'd definitely be one of the favourites so far.
Lauren, we appreciate your time as always. Congratulations to you on a personal level in Fitzroy. Best of luck for the road ahead. We look forward to reading your column as we do every week on Premier B Women's for VAFA Media. Thanks, Loz.
Thank you. See ya.
Always great to catch up with Lauren Atkinson, one of our great contributors to VAFA Media. Read her stuff every week. She writes fantastic stuff on the VAFA women's competition, and as you've heard, she knows so much about it inside and out. Let's talk women's divisional scores over the weekend. We're going to start with Division 1 women's. Whitefriars 9-11-65 defeated St Mary's Salesians 4-4-28 by 37 points. Marcelin 3-10-28 defeated Powerhouse 1-7-13 by 15 points. Big win for Old Carey 8-9-57 defeated Oakley 3-1-19 by 38 points. And the final game of Div 1 women's for the weekend, Ormond 3-14-32 defeated the Blues 3-3-21, 11 points the margin in the end. 3-14 didn't hurt them in the end. 3 goals apiece, and the 11 points got them home.
Well, as you say, every point counts. As the old saying goes.
How'd we go in Division 2?
So Division 2, Bo Morris with a big win over Old Yarra Cobras, 10-12-72 to 1 behind for the Cobras. Richmond Central, a very similar scoreline actually, 10-13-73 to Caulfield Grammarians, 1 behind. UHSVU were too good for Old Camberwell, 3-5-23 to 1-1-7. The close one was at Castlefield Reserve. MCC 4-9-33 defeating the Hampton Rovers 4-4-28. So MCC getting up by 5 points.
Division 3 women's.
Hawthorn maintained their 2-0 start with a 15-11, 101 to 128 win over Albert Park. De La Salle, the other unbeaten team, with 7-14, 56 to 0-2 win over Mazenod. Old Haileybury got on the board with 7-15, 57 to 3-2 win, 3-2-20 win, over Fitzroy's third side. And Brunswick did not play their game against Port Melbourne Chargers, who forfeit.
Division 4 women's, North Brunswick 4-8-32 defeated Glenara Old McKinnon 2-5-17 by 15 points. Wattle Park had a tight one over Ormond at Bennett's Wood Reserve. 2-7-19 defeated Ormond 1-6-12 by 7 points. Aquinas 15-point winners over Canterbury, 5-11-41 defeated Canterbury 4-2-26. And there was a forfeit in the Muggers Zabs game. Zabs forfeited there, so Muggers get the points. Division 5.
Yeah, and we start with the best nickname in footy, the two Blue Lions, Paranka Legions, with a big win over Elstonwick, 9-20-74, which are 2 behinds for Elstonwick. West Brunswick were too good for Monash Blues, 5-12-42 to 2 straight 12. Parkdale with a big win over South Melbourne, 14-11-95 to 1-8. Preston Bull Ants too good for St Kevin's, 6-7-43 to 4-2-26, and then Parkside rounding things out with a big win over De La Salle, 11-11-77 to 1 behind.
That's the VAFA Women's Comp for round 2. Next on For the Love of the Game, we'll talk Holmesglen Under-19 Premier with our reporter LACHIE MOIR. That's coming up next on For the Love of the Game. Looking for VAFA updates on the go? Download the brand new VAFA app today. Get live scores, fixtures, ladders, and all the latest VAFA news right at your fingertips. Whether you're a player, supporter, or just love local footy, the VAFA app keeps you in the game. Search VAFA in your app store and download it now. Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk Holmesglen Under-19 Premier now with our VAFA media reporter, LACHIE MOIR. LACHIE, welcome.
Thanks, guys. Great to be back. Good week of footy. Anzac Day, obviously, on Saturday. Good special occasion and another great round of football.
Let's talk through the results. We'll start. It was Friday night footy down at Jerry Green. It was Caulfield Grammarians 13-14-92 defeated Parkdale 10-9-69 by 23 points.
Yeah, well, Caulfield were able to finish stronger in this game. They ran out the game better, and they had some dangerous handball chains in this game. They're really quick when they get the ball moving. And I think, unfortunately for Parkdale, they just struggled to go with them for 4 quarters. Speaking to Parkdale coach Nick Anderson, he sort of said to me that he felt as if for the first time this season, they really struggled to play 4 quarters at a competitive level. So that's what they'll be working on during training this week to try and get that consistent 4-quarter performance. But full credit to Caulfield, they were strong, and their pressure up sort of for the whole game was very good. So yeah, they're one to watch, Caulfield. I think they've improved a lot this season.
And then looking at Toorak Park, there were a number of really close games this weekend in the Under-19s. Lockie, Old Zavs and Uni Blues played out a thriller. The hosts just getting up.
Yeah, Uni Blues have played in a couple of close ones to start the season. Obviously had that draw round 1 and unfortunately go down here by 2 points. But it was a tight contest all day. The Blues led for large portions of the match and Xavier just were able to moments late and get over the top. Interesting to hear from Steve Boakes, the Uni Blues coach. They actually hit the post 3 times in the second half, which just absolutely kills you. and they did have a late shot after the siren to draw, and it just missed. So, look, they were unlucky, but full credit to Xavier. Their work around the contest was unbelievable, and they were just a bit more efficient with the ball going forward. But just a couple of lapses in concentrations for the Uni Blues cost them in the end. But yeah, just the king of the close game, it seems to be, to start off the season.
That's what they were like in the seniors last year. Remember, they had a string of close games. They got back-to-back draws in the middle of the year.
Speaking of good goal kicking, Lockie, St Kevin's 19-6-120, getting the better of Beau Morris 7-9-51. I imagine the coaching staff would have been mightily impressed.
Yeah, it's always great to be accurate in front of goal. And speaking to Paul Greenham, the coach, he was thrilled with how they were able to sort of put the pressure on the scoreboard. And yeah, they really kicked a big score here. Beau Morris were actually very competitive early on in the game, and like sort of most teams this round, just couldn't capitalise on their early chances and were a bit wasteful. But as soon as the game opened up in that second quarter, St Kevin's just applied that scoreboard pressure, and there was a real notable size advantage forward of the ball, and St Kevin's were able to capitalise on that. And speaking to Beau Morris coach Nathan Prosser, he was impressed with his team's early display, but he sort of just said that, you know, when they couldn't execute in front of goal, it was hard to stop that run and that sort of big size from St Kevin's down forward. So really good stuff from Skevs, and yeah, they bounced back well there with a win.
We're interested to see De La Salle and Old Scotch match up, and sure enough, it turned out to be another tight game. In the end, De La got the point 7-15-57, defeated Old Scotch 7-4-46 by 11 points.
Yeah, it was another tight arm wrestle, this one. They just held firm in the key moments. I think De La Salle and were just a bit more professional around the football. They stayed competitive, Old Scotch, but just couldn't convert pressure. They couldn't really go with them for the four quarters, and I think De La Salle were just too good in the end. And Old Scotch coach Hugo Borum was disappointed that you go down in these tight ones, but he was really happy to play on such a special occasion like Anzac Day, and said it was a great day, great weather, and just a great occasion for the club to be able to play on.
And then wrapping up round two, we were at Brighton Beach Oval on Saturday. There's the second leg of our doubleheader. Old Brighton and St Bede's Mentone, but it was the Tigers who spoiled the party with a 9-point win, 7-12 to 6-7, Lockie.
Yeah, it was a good win by St Bede's Mentone. They've started well in 2026. Contested game early, and St Bede's just lifted in that second quarter. Archie Duke through the midfield was absolutely incredible on the day, and really lifted them in that aspect of their game. Old Brighton actually had a couple of injuries pre-half time which hurt them, and unfortunately just couldn't run out the game and couldn't match the intensity. So speaking to coach Travis O'Donoghue from Old Brighton, he was just a bit disappointed in their sort of pressure around the contest and the intensity. But yeah, full credit to St Bede's Mentone. They have started the season well, and yeah, interesting to see where they're able to get to this year.
It was an entertaining game, this one, and Old Brighton, to their credit, kicked the only 3 goals of the last term. And again, you sort of left yourself thinking, oh, is there time? Can they come back? But credit to St Bede's Mentone Tigers for a wonderful win on the road. And I saw them go into the rooms and sing their song. They put that up on socials, and certainly it was sung with plenty of gusto. They realised what a massive win it was over the back-to-back reigning champions. It was a wonderful performance and some great TV to watch and enjoy on Community TV as part 2 of our double header. That brings us to tips. And Lockie, you got a bit of work to do, my friend. Sench got you 4-3 this week, so he leads 7-5 after 2 rounds of football. Let's talk through round 3 and preview the games ahead and get your thoughts. Caulfield versus Old Brighton, 9:20, Glen Huntly Park, Saturday morning. Caulfield and Old Brighton.
Yeah, tipping Old Brighton here. I think they can start their 2026 campaign off with a win. They've opened the season with 2 losses, but they've been going down in... they opened round 1 with a win, Round 2 was a loss. And they beat St Kevin's, who have come out and had a thumping win in round 2. So I think they might just edge that one away from home at Glen Huntly Park.
It's going to be an interesting game, isn't it? Because as you mentioned, if you feel like Caulfield have improved substantially, now they get a chance to test themselves against Brighton.
Yeah, that's right. Old Brighton, obviously, are a very good side and will be in that upper echelon, whereas Caulfield last year obviously won the wooden spoon. So I'd be interested to see how they match up. And but I think Old Brighton just.
Parkdale versus Uni Blues, 9:20 at Jerry Green.
Hopefully Uni Blues, for the sake of my tipping, can not make it a close game and can win this one convincingly, because I'm going to take the Uni Blues away from home at Parkdale. They've been right on the brink of winning games in the first 2 with the draw and a tight loss, so hoping they can bounce back this week.
And Senchi's gone Parkdale, so it might be a chance for you to pull one back. De La Salle versus St Kevin's, 2 p.m. at Waverley Oval.
Yeah, really like the win of St Kevin's last time out, so I'm going to be taking St Kevin's. I think they're one of the premier teams in the competition. De La Salle, have also started off very well, but I think St Kevin's have just proved too strong and put in a great fourth quarter performance again.
Senchi's gone D-La. Beaumaris versus St Bede's Mentone Tigers, 2 p.m. down at Moorabbin West.
Yeah, St Bede's Mentone have started really well, and I'm going to tip them here. Beaumaris starts the season 0-2, and maybe just a little bit of a hit to their confidence after that big loss last week. So I'll take St Bede's Mentone.
Yeah, Tigers for both of you. And the final game of the weekend is our KTV live and exclusive game, 11:40 from Camberwell. It'll be part one of our double header. Our double header being Old Scotch versus Old Xavs. It'll be under 19 Premier into the seniors game, which is that the preliminary final rematch. Old Scotch and Old Xavs, 11:40 Camberwell, live on KTV.
Yeah, this one was a really tough one, I think. I've gone with Old Xavier, although Old Scotch haven't really done too much wrong, 2 sort of tightish losses to start the year. But I just think Old Xavier, after their weekend performance beating the Uni Blues in a tight one, I think they can take great confidence out of that one. And yeah, hoping Xavier can win. Interesting to see this week. I've tipped every single away team, so hopefully the away form can stand true and get me back on the winning list for the tips this week.
Well, that's true. You've got 3 different dissents out of the 5. So if you can nail all of those, you'll get yourself back in front. Lockie, thanks for your time as always. We look forward to reading your column about round 2, and we'll talk to you again next week and look back at round 3.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Lachie Moir joining us on For the Love of the Game. Speaking of tips, we've got that coming up next for our Premier Divisions. Plus, we've got Ton Watch and Big Bags. That's coming up on For the Love of the Game. Keep up to date with everything that's happening around the VAFA by subscribing to our socials. We're on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Has someone just taken a screamer or kicked goal of the year? Send us your best and we might share them around the league. Join in the fun with all the best pics, videos, stories, and reels from around the competition. They're all on VAFA socials. Search VAFA and VAFA Women's on your favourite platforms. Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk goals. We love our goal kickers. It's big bags time, thanks to Sharon. And our biggest bag of the weekend for round 2 was a 9-goal haul. Thanks very much. Will Honan from Old Xavs. Our thirds kicked 9. 8 goals to Callum Hankin from Caulfield Rezzies. And 8 goals to Mitch Hall from Hampton Rovers third. So Callum and Mitch both came up with 8 goals. 7 goals kicked by 6 different players. Oscar Slizzis from Fitzroy under-19s. Will McIsaac in the Old Xavs Rezzies. Charlie Abbott in the St Kevin's under-19s. Jack Dowling, Old Ivanhoe under-19s. Bello Yassine from De La Salle under-19s. And our leading VAFA women's goal kicker for the weekend. 7 goals to Georgia Harris in Port Melbourne Chargers in their senior performance. We also had 17 players kick 6 on the weekend. So Will Honan from Old Xavs thirds wins our big bags for round 2 with 9. Which brings us to Ton Watch. Will Hart, who remember last week, jumped out to an 11-goal start. He still leads. He kicked 6 on the weekend, okay. Will Hart. So he's now at 17 for the season. He's 4 goals clear of Will Young from St Mary's Salesian Reserves. He has 13, kicked 7 on the weekend. Oscar Slizzis, as I mentioned, from Fitzroy under-19s earlier, he kicked 7 as well. He's got 12 for the season. We've got 4 players on 11 goals apiece. Sam Grimley from Uni Blues, who kicked 5 on the weekend. Zach Bowen from Old Brighton Rezzies, who kicked 3. Patrick Carricher from Terry Panola Seniors, he kicked 5 on the weekend. He's got 11 for the season. 11 also for Daniel Marchese from Elstonwick Seniors, who kicked 6 on the weekend. And Mitch Brown, as we mentioned, just held to 1 goal for the weekend. He's got 10 for the year. So Will Hart on 17, 13 for Will Young, 12 for Oscar Slizzis, and then Sam Grimley, Zach Bowen, Patrick Carricher, and Daniel Marchese on 11. In our VAFA women's, I mentioned Georgia Harris booted 7 on the weekend. So she leads now the VAFA women's competition on Ton Watch. She's got 8 for the season. Mia Cowan from Old Scotch, their superstar. She kicked 5 on the weekend. She's got 7 for the year. 7 also for Annabelle Schmidt from the 2 Blue Lions. She kicked 4 on the weekend to give her 7 for the season. Also with 7 for the year, Luca Travascus from Willie CYMS in their Holmesglen under-19 Premier Women's competition. She kicked 5 on the weekend. She has 7 for the year. So Georgia Harris on 8, Mia Cowan, Annabelle Schmidt and Luca Travascus with 7 in the VAFA Women's Ton Watch for 2026. It brings us to our tips and, well, Matthew, this is not making for pretty reading.
Nope. No, I'm guessing it doesn't.
Over the weekend, you had an absolute, I think the technical term is stinker. You picked 5 out of 15. 3 in the women's, 1 in Premier B men's, which is your specialty, and 1 in Premier men's, which is also your specialty. What went wrong?
Yeah, well, I've clearly not been doing the right amount of research. Might have got the home and away teams mixed up. In fairness to me, with the Premier men's at least, 2 of the games that I tipped I got wrong were decided by less than a kick, so wasn't too far away from getting slightly above. But clearly, I've got work to do. The kid gloves are off. We're not playing any more games. We're going to be fair dinkum serious now going forward. So it's going to be, we're looking for 15 this week. That's got to be the aim to get back on track.
So Brayden tipped 9, you tipped 5. So now Brayden leads it by 4, 19 to 15. So you've got a bit of work to do. Let's start with Premier Women's Round 3 action. Old Geelong versus Willie CYMS, Saturday 9:30, Como Park.
Yeah, so I'm going to go here with Old Geelong at home to get the job done here.
Yeah, I'm going to match up with Matty for this one.
Okay. Well, actually, you know what we're going to do? He's leading, so he can give his tips first. That's the way it's always worked in the past.
He can just follow me and can never lose.
So Ogs for both of you. Westbourne versus St Kevin's, 2 p.m. Andrew Park. Brayden.
St Kevin's will bounce back.
Yeah, I'm going to go St Kevin's as well. Yeah.
It doesn't help you, but
no,
if you think it's going to win, that's really all that matters at the end of the day. Otherwise, you're just getting further behind. Q versus Old Scotch, 2 p.m. Victoria Park.
Oh, this is the hardest game of the weekend, I reckon. I'm going to go the Cardinals.
All right, well, here's a chance to make some ground. I'm going to tip Q.
West Brunswick versus Caulfield, 2 p.m. McAllister Oval.
The Fields.
Yeah, Caulfield, yeah.
Caulfield for both. And the final game of Round 3 Premier Women's, Fitzroy versus Old Brighton, 2 p.m. at Brunswick Street.
Fitzroy will keep firing.
Yeah, have to go Fitzroy here.
The Roys to get it done at home. Premier B, Round 3 Premier B Men's. Collegians and Beau Morris. What a game this is at Harry Trott.
This is going to be an absolute beauty. We mentioned Prem C. There's a top of the table clash going on, and same thing here. But you're going first here, Brayden.
I reckon the Lions just pip them just for quality over coming down from the top tier.
Yeah, I've gone Collegians as well.
Old Geelong versus Willie CYMS. Interesting game, this one, at Como Park.
Yeah, the big ground advantage for Old Geelong seems to be something a lot of the opposition coaches talk about as well. I reckon they'll get on the board here.
All right, I've gone Williamstown here, so I've clawed back 2 of the tips, all things being equal.
Old Ivanhoe versus Old Camberwell. As we mentioned, the 2 winless teams. Gee, what a massive game. And if anything, you probably expected it might be the 2 undefeated teams after a couple of rounds leading into the season, but they both started 0-2. Both excellent teams, though. It's a very small sample size, and we'd expect both of them to bounce back and be right in the mix. For one of them, it starts now.
The home side for me. I think the new coach gets his first win on the board, and they just get rolling from here.
Hoers for you. What about you,
Yeah,
Matty?
this is a massive game for both teams, but I'm going to go Ivanhoe too.
Old Melburnians versus Ajax, 2 1-1 teams.
Oh, I reckon Ajax will like the surrounds out here behind us.
All right, that's 3. I'm going Old Melburnians.
And the final game of Premier Men's for Round 3, Premier B Men's rather, is Old Carey versus De La Salle.
De La Salle have got that winning feeling, and it's contagious.
But so did Carey. They had a massive win over the weekend.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one, actually. I'm going to go with De La Salle.
De La Salle for you both, which brings us to Winning Buck Premier Men's Round 3. As I mentioned at the start of the show, showcase round this weekend. So every single Premier Men's match will be live and free on vafa.com.au on Saturday afternoon. We'll have a mega wall set up for you on the website so you can just sit back, have them all going at once. So it's a fantastic initiative, and our thanks to MySport Live for making that happen. We're also going to have showcase rounds for Premier Women's later in the season and Premier B Men's. Opportunities for you to see every game live and free on VAFA TV across the weekend, which is a great initiative. And again, our thanks to MySport Live. First game, William Buck Premier Men's for Round 3, is our SEN match of the day as well. So not only will you see it on vafa.com.au, you can listen to it on the SEN app. Matty Donald and the team from 1:45 Saturday. And what a game this is. All of a sudden, Uni Blacks versus Old Trinity.
Yeah, huge game for both of these sides. We talked to Donald McDonald earlier, and what a great game it was at the weekend for Old Trinity. What a terrific result it was for them. Uni Blacks 0-2. They've just got to find a way to snap out of this form slump to start the season. And I'm going to back Dale Bowers' men here to get the job done and get that first win of the season, get things rolling.
Yeah, I'm with Matty there. I think the time will come and they'll get rolling and I think they'll win by about 5 or 6 goals.
Okay, Old Scotch versus Old Xaverians, the rematch of that classic preliminary final that went literally to the final kick of the day. down at Camberwell. This one live and free on vafa.com.au. And also it's part 2 of our community TV doubleheader. So if you've got your community TV subscription, you can watch it there as well from 1:55. Old Scotch and Old Xaverians. Who do you like?
You should be going first here, Brad.
I think Dan Donati's men, I've tipped them to finish on top of the ladder. I think now that was a bit of a wake-up call on the weekend. I reckon they'll have a point to prove against Scotch, who will also have a point to prove.
Yeah, going Old Xaverians here, they'll bounce back.
Call for Grammarians versus Uni Blues, as I mentioned, live and free on vafa.com.au from 1:55. The Fields and the Blues.
If the Blues are improved as we think they are, they've got to take care of business here, and I think they will on the road.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be contending, these are the sorts of games that you've got to win for Uni Blues, and I'm going to tip them to get the job done.
Old Haileybury versus Old Brighton. Again, vafa.com.au at 1:55 down at Princes Park.
The Tunners are just flying, and I think they're going to take some beating here again.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tip anybody against Old Brighton at the moment.
And the final game of the weekend, a really interesting one, this one. St Kevin's, who are winless, up against St Bernard's, who are coming off their win over Old Scotch. So they're flying. Again, you can see it live and free on vafa.com from TH King, St Kevin's and St Bernard's.
Yeah, I think St Kevin's will be too strong, but the Snow Dogs are very, very difficult to read. It'll be interesting to see what sort of performance we get out of them on the road.
This could be one of those games where it takes the 4 full quarters to get the job done. I'm going to back St Kevin's to manage it.
St Kevin's for you both. So every game live and free from Premier Men's on Saturday afternoon. You can kick off your Saturday of footy on VAFA Media from 11:35, live and exclusive on Community TV. So get your subscription, or if you're a Herald Sun or News Corp subscriber, you've already got access to that through Community TV. 11:35 Saturday morning. It's our Holmesglen Under-19 Premier Match of the round. It's Old Scotch and Old Zavs at Camberwell, leading straight into the seniors at 1:45. So that's going to be a fantastic doubleheader, Old Scotch and Old Zavs. That wraps it up for round 2 in review. Round 3 promises to be just as exciting. We'll be back here next week on For the Love of the Game to talk more footy.